Hello everybody and welcome back to another Atris Studios tutorial. Now today what we're going to be getting into is developing the AI for our zombie game. Now it's the last episode, you guys saw me create the level, which was, not that difficult. It actually took me about 25-ish minutes for that little preview that we had. So I'm going to try to knock out all the AI stuff today, which means that it's going to be a little bit of a long episode, but we're going to make sure we get all the things done. That way we don't have to worry about them afterwards. Multi-episodes and all that good stuff. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so the first thing I want to do here is create some form of object that we can activate as our character for our enemy. Now I downloaded, of course, another asset, and this one is going to be just this character right here. I'm going to just drag him into the scene like so. Now, currently, we know that the size of our character is roughly going to be about 2 units high, and this is roughly that size. So this is good. All right, so the next thing we want to do is create some form of animation for this character, or the animation controller for this character. So I'm going to right click next to this model, and actually I'm not even going to do it there. I'm going to go over to the animation folder. And then I'm going to create a Animator Controller. And right here, we're going to call this our zombie controller. Like so. Go ahead and select your character here and drag the zombie controller on here as the controller. Make sure that we take off the apply root motion because we don't really want to use that at the moment. Next, we're going to double click this zombie controller and it will open up the Animator window. If you don't have this window, that's okay. Head over here to the top of the screen, select window, go over to animation, select animator right there. All right, so we're going to create a state. Now we got to think about this from a perspective of what we want our characters to be able to do. Now, obviously, in the beginning, we're not going to really do too much with the spawning. So we're just going to have a motion of attacking, motion of dying, and a motion of moving. All the rest of the animations we could do whatever with, but just add the animations that you're going to need. So since we don't really have an idle state for this character, I'm going to select just a empty state, and we're going to call this motion, right? Because this is going to be the initial state that we're going to be using. I'm going to create another state here, and I'm going to call this state our death state. And then we're going to create another state, and let's go ahead and call this state. What do we want to call this state? If we take damage, then we want it to stun the character, right? So let's actually call this our stun state. So we have our death state, stun state, and motion state. Oh yes, and we need one more state, which is going to be our attack state, like so. All right, so for all these over here, besides our base motion state, these are going to be activated and then they're going to reset. So we can call these by going to any state and make transitions to each one of these states, like so. Then from there, we're going to simply grab and make transitions down, except for death. Death we want to leave where it is, so we'll just do this like so. All right, so now since we have just the base layout for our animation states, let's go ahead and plug in some values. So we're going to select our attack state, double click that. Actually, don't double click that, what am I talking about? And we're going to find some form of animation. So let's go ahead and select this attack right here, go over to our animations tab, and currently it's going to be hidden because of this thing right here. I know. Let's try to pull this out a little bit so we'll be able to see. Okay, we probably won't be able to see. Oh well. So what we'll do is we're just going to select whatever we want to use our attack. And actually, I just realized this is the only attack that we have here, so I can't really change that. So we're going to select our attack state, and we're going to simply grab this and select attack, like so. The next thing I want to do is select our stun state, and this one I'm going to look for something that we can use as a damage. So we have this great damage torso front, so we're going to do that right there. And for our motion, obviously we just want to be able to walk, chase, or for some cases run would be good as well. These are just the animations that I currently have with me. Now if you have other animations, by all means use those. All right, and I think that the last state we need to select their death state. Make sure that we go over here and select death as well. All right, so on these animations, make sure that we do have loop time set for our walk because it's going to be constantly looping. Our attack state, we need to ensure that this is only a once attack. So we're going to deselect this looping and hit apply. And we also want to do the same thing for this damage. We don't want it to loop, so we're going to change the loop time as well. And of course, death, make sure that that is not looping as well. All right, so we should have all the animation states set up here. Let's go ahead and add in the parameters now. So for the parameters, we have a Boolean, which is going to say is dead. And for this Boolean, we're just going to select this right here, add a condition is dead is equal to true, done, just like that. We want the settings here, can transition to self is equal to false because we don't want it to do that. We just want it to hit it once and that's it. Same thing here, we're going to select can transition to self is equal to false and can transition to self is equal to false as well. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a Boolean and we're going to say is attacking, like so. Actually, no, we're going to change these. I personally think we can actually run with a trigger instead because once it activates, then yeah, we'll do it this way. This seems to work, I think, a lot more efficiently. So yeah, make sure that condition is dead is there. Let's go ahead and create a new trigger, is attacking, or let's just call it attack. How about that? Like so. Then select this, add a condition, and we're going to select attack, like so. Let's add another trigger called hit. Select this one, and hit. I don't know why. Let's delete that transition and do this. That was really weird. Okay, anyway. Yeah, so once we have that done, good. And then we're going to make sure that these have those, good, great. And for the return values, all we need to do is make sure that has exit time is equal to true. And let's go ahead and drag this over, has exit time is equal to true, perfect. So now all those are set up and they're ready to go. All right, so the next thing we need to do is get into creating the movement for the character. Now to do this, we're going to create a scripts folder. So right click inside of our project folder, create a new folder. We're going to call this our scripts, like so. And we're going to go inside here, create a folder, and we're going to call this controllers. Go inside there, create a new C# script, and we're going to call this script zombie controller, like so. So we're going to open this up inside of our text editor. For me, Visual Studios. For you, whatever you want to be using. Visual Studios is just awesome. So yeah. All right, so for this, I'm going to close that one down because we don't really need it, and go ahead and erase all the basic stuff. We're probably going to use them, but I mean, I like working with a clean slate. So at the top, we're going to add a library. We're going to go Unity Engine .ai. This will allow us to be able to utilize the Nav Mesh feature, which personally I think is a very well-built system. I know some people don't like using it, but I personally do like using it. So we're going to add a Nav Mesh Agent like so. And what this does is it simply will add this object into or on the game object if it's missing. So we don't have to do it ourselves. Okay, so for our movement, I'm simply going to create a void update, and we want to be able to move to a specific object. So whenever we spawn, we want to be able to ensure that our character is constantly moving to the player. So we're going to create a private transform, and we're going to call this player. From there, we're going to say void start player is equal to game object dot. Actually, let's do find game object. So let's say transform dot find, and we're going to look for. I don't really want to do find because it will basically search for the actual game object with a name. I want it to be able to find a game object with a tag. So dot find how should I do that? You know what? We're going to, for now, just have it search for the game object that's named player. But I personally want it to... be able to get the tag. So we'll worry about that later. But let's go ahead and just call this player for now. So now it's going to find this object and it's going to assign it. And from here, we're going to simply create the Nav Mesh feature. So actually, let's go to the top. We're going to add a private Nav Mesh Agent. We're going to call that nm. Underneath our void start function, we're going to say nm is equal to get component, and we're going to type in our Nav Mesh Agent, like so. And then inside of our void start function, we're going to say nm.set destination, and we're going to set our destination equal to our player dot position. So this will constantly update the AI and make it constantly move to the player. So now I'm going to copy this right here. We're going to come over here and let it go ahead and update real fast, so that way, you know, we're not worried about any format issues. And I'm going to select our player ref, rename it as player, and then let's go ahead and select this character here. We're going to call it zombie. Go over to our assets folder, create a brand new folder, call it prefabs. Go inside here, drag our zombie inside there like so. Original prefab, boom, done. We're going to select our zombie. We're going to then find where our scripts is, controllers, drag our zombie controller on here like so. For now, let's go ahead and leave all these settings the same, except for our braking distance. I think we'll put, or stopping distance, we'll put that at about 2, I think. Yeah. And of course, we have nothing else on the script for now, so we can go over to our game view. I'm gonna drop this right here, over here. If it actually allows it to go, it doesn't want to go for some reason. That's okay. But what we're going to do is we're going to now hit play and we're going to see what happens. All right. So what should happen, because we already baked the nav mesh inside the scene. So now the zombie should be able to move to the specific target. But let's see what it's doing here. So object reference not set to an instance of an object, which means that we're not finding the player object here. Okay. So let's do this then. Game object dot find dot transform. So let's do this. We're going to create a game object, call it obj, and we're going to simply find this object. Okay, yeah, it does not want to do it that way. All right, so this is what I'm going to do. I didn't want to actually have to do this beforehand because this is actually a player script, but it's okay. We're going to do it anyway because we're going to eventually have to do it whenever we create the player. So let's go ahead and take care of that. I'm going to hit clear real fast, go over to the projects, create a new C# script, and we're going to call this our player controller. I know, right? Something that we probably should have built. All right, so inside here, we're just going to create a singleton value for our character. So make sure we create a region. We're going to call this singleton. And inside here, we're going to create a private static player controller. And we're going to call this instance void awake instance is equal to this, like so. So now we can go over to our zombie controller, and instead of, so now we can assign it here. We're going to just simply say player is equal to player controller dot instance dot transform. like so. Instance. Oh, and this actually needs to be a public static. Yeah, there we go. All right, so now we should be able to call it, and the AI should be able to move. All right, so it's finished compiling, and we're heading in. All right, so it's still not setting it to an instance, so let's see what's going on here. I'm going to double click this. All right. Oh. See, this is something that I keep on forgetting. It's like you work around something and then you forget that you need to add it to the actual object. Remember, what was it, a couple times ago when we worked on these scripts? Yeah, that happened too. All right, now the magic's gonna work. So we got the player controller on there. The AI is moving to the player, which is great. And now if we move the player, let's go ahead and do that. Oh, come on. All right, perfect. So now the AI is following the player exactly the way we want him to. Now, you may notice though that the AI is, well, you know, being very wonky, right? And it's not completely looking at the actual player, which it can be a problem, right? So let's go ahead and fix that problem as well. So we're going to pop over here real fast. All right, and what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and double click down here. I'm going to create a new region, and we're going to call this rotation. Now, I could go ahead and type all this out, but it's just going to take way too long. So I'm going to just plug this in real fast. And this is just a very common script that everybody really uses to be able to set the rotation. And if you need to find the script, it can be found online. But we're going to replace a couple of these right here. So I'm going to change the target position to our player.position. I'm going to change the dampening, which is the smooth time, right? And we're going to set this to 0.125F, like so. And hit Control S just to be able to test this out. So I'm going to hit play again after it compiles, and then we're going to continue on from there. Okay. So here we go. Hit play. Then we'll head over to the scene view just to be able to move our object around and make sure that everything is working the way we want it to. All right, so we're going to move it ever so slightly. Good. And as you can see, it is moving rather slow, right? It's moving way too slow. So let's go ahead and make some adjustments here. So we're going to come over here. Let's change this to about 5. How about that? Come back over here, let it compile up again, just like so. And once it's done compiling, then we're going to just go back in and do it all over again. So hit play. And hopefully 5 is going to be good enough. I don't like jacking up the smoothing because it can get way too complicated. All right, so here we go. We're going to just adjust it. There we go. Perfect. Nice. I love it. All right, so we now have the ability for the AI to chase the player around and do whatever they want. So the next thing that we want to do is make sure that the AI starts attacking once they reach a certain distance to our character, right? So we're going to close up the rotation, and right here we're going to simply create a destination checklist, right? So we're going to simply say actually first we're going to create a distance. So we're going to say float dist, which is equal to transform.position minus, actually, I'm getting steps ahead of myself. We need to do a vector3.distance because we could do it the other way, but it's too much of a calculation error. So we're going to go transform.position minus or to our player.position, right? So we're getting the distance between the two. Now we're going to say if dist is less than or equal to our stopping distance. So nm.stopping distance. Then we want to be able to activate attack, right? So we're going to basically set up our trigger. So I want to make sure that we can't just continually attack though, because we don't want to constantly hit attack, right? Because that would be a problem if we're constantly attacking. So let's go ahead and come up to the top, add a bool, and we're going to call is attacking, right? And from here, actually, let's go ahead and invoke. Yeah, let's do an invoke instead. So let's add in here, we're going to do a void attack, like so, which will then activate a trigger. So we're going to then go get our animation. So we need to make sure that we come over here to the top, add a private animator, and we're going to call it anim. Instead of our void start, we're going to say anim is equal to get component animator, like so. Then we're going to come back down here and we're going to say anim dot set trigger, and then we're going to put in our attack. Now this is the parameter that we set up earlier, so we're going to just do that. Now we want to be able to invoke this, so that way it only runs once and then it's over with. So we're going to say invoke, and we could do repeating. And let's do this. Yeah, we're going to invoke our attack method, like so. And it should be, oh, I'm being stupid. And let's do this in 0.1 seconds. Now, once it invokes the attack, I wanted to make sure that it doesn't continually do this. So we need to ensure this with a question. We're going to say if our anim dot, and we want to get our current state, right? So we need to get our current animation state info, go with our 0 index dot is name, right? So we're going to be getting the name of the state that we're in. And I want to make sure that the state that we're in is not equal to motion. So if our state is equal to motion right here, then we're going to invoke an attack, just like so. Otherwise, it's not going to attack and basically just do what we want it to do. So let's go ahead and test this out and see what it does. So here we go. And let's just hope that everything works the first time, because normally it doesn't, but we'll see. So I'm going to see if I can dock. Yes, I can dock it. All right. So let's scoot this out a little bit, I think. Let's then drag this in a little bit just so we can see everything that's going. We're going to drag our stun over here because we only have the attack running at the moment. I'm going to hit play, and let's go over to our scene view. I probably should also set where the camera is a little better, but that's okay. So we're currently inside of our motion state, and we should be able to see it go into our attack state. Okay, good, good. It only calls it once, which is awesome. All right, great. So it is working the first time. Now we need to be able to make it to where the zombie will be able to take damage, but also deal damage as well. So right here, we're going to create a script which can be interchangeable with both the character and, of course, the zombie. So this is not really going to be a controller script. This is more a utility script. So I'm going to call this a utility, like so. We're going to go inside here. We're going to create a C# script, and we're going to call it our stats. And then we're going to just enter that. And with our stat script, all we really need to do is call a couple features. So the first thing that we need to do is create a public int called health. And you can do this as a float value as well. I'm just going to do it as an int value, and we're going to call this 100. We're going to then create some form of, I guess you could say, function where we take damage. So public void called take damage, like so. And then lastly, we're going to create a public void called death. And actually, we don't even need this as a public void. We need this. We could really just call this as just a void, because then we can invoke this and kill the object or character or whatever. Okay, so I think what we want to do here. Now, this is just a thought that I'm thinking. Actually, let's create one more. We're going to say void remove object, like so. Okay, yeah, there we go. All right, so instead of take damage, we need to have an amount. So we're going to create this as an integer, and we're going to say amount. Then we're going to say health minus equals amount, like so. If health is less than or equal to 0, then we're going to trigger the death state, like so. With the death state, we need to ensure that we get the animation for this. So let's go ahead and add that inside here at the top. So we're going to create a private animator, and we're going to call it anim. Create a void start function. Anim is equal to get component animator, like so. And then we're going to simply come down here, anim.setTrigger is dead, like so. Then we're going to invoke the remove object, like so. And we're going to do that after about 2 seconds. And right here, for now, what we're going to do is just destroy this object. Normally what we would do is add this into like a object pool, in which case it would just simply remove the collision, remove the object's rendering and all that damage and stuff like that, and then just replace it whenever we respawn the object. That way it's not adding and removing objects or constantly instantiating objects, which takes a lot of your CPU and RAM. So yeah, it's just a lot of memory usage that you don't really have to use. But since this is a small project, I'm not worried about this. But if you are going to be making this as a professional object, you will need to update this right here. Okay. So I'll leave that there for you guys if you want to continue on building something like this. But for now, we're just going to do this because I don't think we're going to have too many. We'll probably have like 25, 50 zombies. We'll see. All right, so we now have that taken care of. Let's go ahead and add that on to, let's add that on to the zombie. So I'm going to first grab the player. And not there. I want to create a void update. And this is just going to be for testing. So I'm going to create a if input.get, and let's do get key down. No, get key. Nah, get key down. Let's do keycode dot spacebar. Now keep in mind, I'm doing the old-fashioned way because I prefer this method of using the input system versus the newer version. But yeah, leave a comment below if you prefer the newer version compared to the older version. I personally love the older version, but that's just me. Okay, so inside here, I just simply want to grab the zombie controller and I want to basically deal damage. So let's create a public zombie controller and call it ref. Now let's call it sample test. Like so. That would be no to remove this. And let's also do this right here. And then we're going to say sample test. And actually, no, we're going to actually grab the stats because that's what we want to do here. Sample test, like so. Dot take damage. And let's go with 10 damage at a time. And also we need to go over to our stats for the zombie. So let's create a bool here. So public bool is player. And we're going to set that automatically equal to false. So if we're player, then we don't want to do what I'm about to do. But if we're a zombie, then we do want to do it. So I'm going to do an if statement here. If is player. And we're going to put a not sign in front of it. If not is player, then anim.setTrigger, and we're going to call this hit, like so. And I sort of want to put this actually under the check on death. And the reason why is because if we end up dying, we don't want this to run. So let's also do boom, 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 add a return here. So it doesn't run this down here. All right, actually, no, hold on. Else if. There we go. That's better. And just plug that in like so. Perfect. All right. So now we have that running. So we should be able to play the hit function. It's going to stun the character, and then it's going to allow the character to move again. Right here, we would actually disable the nav mesh, which prevents the character from moving. But I'm going to leave it there for now because it doesn't really matter so much. Okay, so I think everything should be good. Let's go ahead and hit here. Oh, wait, hold on. Everything's not good because we do need to stop the player from moving if we're dead. So, or the zombie if we're dead. So we need to make sure that we go over to the zombie controller. And we want all this to run only if we're inside of the motion state. Well, we also want the rotation to run. But we don't want the character to move if we're, yeah. So I'm going to do this right here. So we're going to grab this, Control C, Control V, and then we're going to just run the movement if we're, into the motion state. And then we're going to go over to the rotation, plug this in here like so, and we're going to then, like so. Actually, hold on. I know what we can do. This way we can get this all taken care of in one fell swoop. So we're going to plug this in here. We're going to change this from motion to dead, or death, I think. I believe that's what it is. Oh goodness, and it got to compile. My God. All right, so let's go ahead and make sure that is what it is. So death, perfect. So we're going to check if the state is in death, and we're going to put a not sign in front of that. So if we're not dead, then we'll run this. If we are dead, then it's going to stop all that and prevent it from working. So that's what we want it to do. Yeah, all right, perfect. Okay, so let's head back over here. Cross our fingers, hopefully everything's gonna work. And we are going to add the stat script to the zombie. And I did remember. So grab that, drop it onto the zombie, and then we're gonna hit play. And we're going to hit the space bar to go and deal damage to the zombie, keeping an eye on this state right here. So let's go over to our scene view and hit the space bar. Inside the game view, thank you. Make sure we select our zombie. Oh, and we forgot to assign the zombie here. So just like so. All right, so we're going to hit the space bar, and we should now begin to start dealing damage, I think. Let's put this right here. There we go. All right, good. He's getting hit. And he's dead. Perfect. I think he disappeared a little too fast. But it's not a bad start, I think. I did notice a couple things whenever we were doing this. We need to ensure that the zombie does actually fall to the ground. That's an animation problem, so it's not a huge deal because that's something that we can fix, and I can fix that later if need be. Especially since, yeah, it's like seeing all this stuff is going to be a problem. Let's hit this right here. Hit that apply. And let's go ahead and make sure that the zombie does die. So we're going to quickly kill it and see what happens. Okay, good. He's dead. we also need to disable the character's continuous movement because the motion was still to go to the player. So we're going to basically put on death. We need to make sure that the player just stops. So let's do an else. And we're going to simply invoke once. No. Let's just say nm.setDestination transform.position, like so. And that should fix that problem as well. Okay, so the last thing that we need to do for the zombie to ensure that everything's working properly is to add in the combat. Now the combat, not really that difficult, okay? It literally is just ensuring that there's some form of damage part on the zombie. So we're going to create a script for this, which means that we got to go over to our utilities folder in our scripts. We're going to create a C# script, and we're going to call this our damage script. And now this we can add on to our bullets as well whenever we actually start working on the guns. But this script is just a very basic script, okay? No, I wanted to open up the damage script, man. There we go. All right, so inside of the damage script, go ahead and erase everything because we don't need it. We just want to create a bool. And actually, no, let's do this. We want to determine based on tag. So let's create an enum. So public enum called target types. And we're going to say player is one, zombie is another. Okay? Go ahead and put that down. Do a public target types now, and we're going to call this target. Or actually, no. What we can do, because if we have our enemies with a tag of enemy, yeah, I think we can do it that way. Okay. Guys, I'm getting inspired. Okay, it's a thing. So let's just do it this way. We want to first determine what sort of object we are on and what sort of object the player is on. So if our tag is player and their tag is enemy, then we just need to do this as a trigger collider. So we're going to create a on trigger enter. If other is not equal to, or if other dot tag is not equal to game object dot tag, then we're going to run this right here. No, that won't work out that well, because just thinking out loud, this can be added to bullets or hands or whatever, so it's not necessarily going to. Yeah, okay, so we'll just do this then. We're going to do a public string called target tag. Then we're going to say if other dot tag is equal to target tag. Did I just if other dot tag? Oh yeah, duh. I'm probably just having a problem with sleeping now. I mean, look at this, guys. On trigger enter. Now if other dot tag. Oh god, guys, I'm tired. It's terrible. Is equal to target dot tag. If that's true, then we want to detect if there's a stat script on it. So we're going to say if game object or other dot game object dot get component stats. And actually, we can create an empty game object. So we're going to say game object. No, I think we'll just do it this way. So if we can get that object or get a stats object from it, then we're going to say other dot game object dot get component stats dot take damage, and then we need to plug in an amount. Make sure we add a public int called damage, like so. And for now, we're going to just set this to 50. No, we'll do 25. And just plug in 25, or not 25, plug in damage, and that should be good enough. Now, this variable right here, the damage variable and all, can be changed up whenever we do the spawning, especially considering if you want to do like a wave spawn. So just keep that in mind. This variable, we don't want it to just stay consistently like this. We want to be able to edit that later. All right, so let's go back over here, and we're going to add that damage script to our zombie. So open it up. Make sure we select our zombie as well, and we're going to tag it as player. We also want to add in some form of hit collision, so we're going to add a capsule collider like so, and make sure that we set this to, we could do is trigger. It doesn't really matter so much. Let me go over to scene view. I think for the zombie itself, we will go with a trigger, only because I don't want to deal with any form of extra issues. So let's go ahead with a height of 2, and that should be fine. Change the radius to about 0.25. Yeah. Well, maybe like a 0.4. Make it easier on the player. Okay, so I think that should do that. Let's make sure we grab our skeleton here. And we're going to go over to the hand. And which hand is the attack hand? So actually, let's press play real fast. We got to be able to see what hand is attacking. That way we can make sure that we're doing things right. So it's going to be the right hand. Okay. So let's go ahead and find that. Right shoulder, right arm, right lower hand, right hand. Add a component. We're going to add a sphere collider. Locate it, drop it down to maybe a 0.1. That looks pretty good. Set as trigger. Add the damage. And we're going to select this as our target tag. Is going to be player, like so. Select our player. Make sure we tag it as player. It does have a capsule collider already, so that's good. And yeah, okay. So that should work out perfectly. Now for testing purposes, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to print damaged player, because we don't really have anything on the player to actually say that it was damaged at all. Now, sometimes it requires you to have a rigid body on these objects. So that's what we're testing out right now. I'm going to select my console. I'm going to press play. And let's hope that it works without the rigid body. If it doesn't, we're just going to add the rigid body on there and we should be good. So okay, so it's not going to be doing it. Let's pause it real fast. Add a rigid body. Set this to continuous dynamic. Interpolate. It doesn't really matter right now. We're just testing. Okay, so it doesn't seem like the object is actually hitting. Let's raise this up to a 0.2. Okay, there we go. It is hitting. .3 maybe? Okay. So let's do this again. We're going to raise this up to a 0.2, but then we're also going to grab our zombie and our distance to stopping on our Nav Mesh Agent. We're going to actually drop that down to a 1 just to see what happens. We're going to hit play again, and let's see if it does anything. Now, whenever I press play, I remove the rigid body, so we're going to see if that had any effect. Okay, so 1 is way too close. So 1.5, how about that? Hit play. And of course, you gotta love this part about the actual design. It's really just a bunch of testing, making sure everything's working properly. All right, so it looks like he's not actually dealing any damage when there's no rigid body attached. So let's grab our player, add a rigid body like so. Go ahead and set it to continuous dynamic, interpolate. Everything else should be fine as is. Make sure that we do hit the constraints and freeze rotations like so. We will have to add these to the zombie as well, but right now we're just making sure that the zombie attacks work. So then we can call it a night. So yeah, it's gonna be awesome. All right, so we damage the player, and as I can pull it up, it's only damaging once, so that's good. And I think he's just a tad bit too close, so we can probably pull him back a little bit. Probably raise this up to about a 0.3. Just yeah, that seems plenty big. And then let's just pull him back a tad bit, like so. Hit play, and the last time, I promise, guys, I promise. And we should be ready to go with the zombie. Now, I hope you guys did enjoy this tutorial. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, check out some of my other videos. And of course, if you have any questions, make sure to leave those inside the comment section below. I'll be happy to get to those as soon as possible. If you have an idea for what you want inside this game, like what sort of weapons or what sort of zombies and that we can add in here, that'd be awesome. I would love to hear from you guys. As for this, yeah, everything seems to be working the way I wanted it to. So awesome. All right, guys. I'll see you later. Bye.